Well, viewers, welcome back. We have Aaron. He's back in the studio. And as promised, I'm Andrew Todd Smith, of course, and we are going to be ranking the teams as we see them being ranked in Tuesday's first inaugural, I guess you could say, college football playoff set of rankings released on October 28th. Panel of originally 13 people, Archie Manning taking a leave of absence for medical reasons, so it'll just be these 12 people deliberating and breaking down their top 25. So we've taken into account what we think will happen with the coming action of the weekend, and incorporated that into our rankings predictions. So, Aaron, without further ado,
you want to do it at the same time?
Sure, let's do it.
We're doing this?
Yeah.
Alrighty then.
I'm going with the Utah Utes at number 25, and I know already, I took a look at Aaron's rankings. I know he disagrees because that USC Trojans-Utes matchup is where we fundamentally disagree. Most of our other stuff, with a couple flip-flops here and there, are pretty consistent. We did them independently. We should, I guess, air that out in the interest of full disclosure. But I have Utah. You want to talk about why you think Minnesota's a good pick?
I'm going with the Golden Gophers of Minnesota. I think that last week, they went down early against Purdue in that game, but they fought back. They have a lot of people may say that just because they play in the Big Ten or whatnot, they may not deserve a look, but the way that they've been winning so far and the fact that they've continued to win, I think Coach Kill and the Golden Gophers deserve a look at number 25.
Well, I agree with you because I think they're one of the deserving one-loss teams. They may not have a hugely strong schedule in the Big Ten's down year, but I think they've handled business, and I agree with you, Aaron, that they are going to continue to do so, and I think they're going to beat Illinois. So I have UCLA at 24, you have them at 23, so we're in agreement there. Strong two-loss team. They dropped the two decisions, but they're pretty quality losses. So I don't know. I have faith in Brett Hundley to get the job done. They're facing Colorado this weekend. I think they're one of the better two-loss teams that we've seen in the country, and they're playing in a brutal Pac-12 this year. So
coming in at 24 for me, I think the Trojans of Southern California. I think the matchup this weekend against Utah, they come up a little bit short. I think they fall to 24. And I think UCLA comes in just ahead of them. I think they ride a little bit of the momentum and preseason rankings they had with some of the expectations with that team, but I don't see them being ranked any higher than 20th. So I have them filling in the 23rd spot just behind the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, and I have Clemson at 21, Aaron. I don't think that the ACC is terribly impressive this year, but I mean, Clemson is doing what's been asked of them. Jameis Winston-less Florida State was able to beat them. They're challenging themselves in the non-conference arena with Georgia, whom, of course, they lost to. And Georgia, we'll get to them later. But yeah, I don't know. Clemson is doing... They're not doing anything to take themselves out of the rankings, put it that way. At number 20, I have Marshall, the lowest, unfortunately for them in their conference, the lowest ranked undefeated team in the country at 7-0. Rakeem Cato getting it done. He's thrown a touchdown pass in, I believe, 39, an NCAA record 39 consecutive games, and I look for that to be 40 this coming weekend when they face Florida Atlantic University. So I don't think those Owls are going to pose much of a challenge there.
And I think I have them a little bit flip-flopped. I have Marshall filling the 21st slot and Nebraska coming in at 20. I just don't, the way that they handled business against Michigan State earlier, I think I just don't see the strong Nebraska team that a lot of people expected with Bo Pelini at the helm. So I give them, I would say, the benefit of the doubt at the 20th spot.
Yeah, I give them a little more than just the benefit of the doubt. I do believe that the Cornhuskers have probably scared their fan base a little bit. They had the early scare against McNeese State and Amir Abdullah, the sort of Heisman, the guy that's in the Heisman conversation at running back for the Cornhuskers, saved them from utter destruction by losing to an FCS team. Because that didn't happen, I think they go and they beat a strong. We witnessed Rutgers this past weekend. I think Nebraska can go in there and beat the Scarlet Knights. So
I think they handle business as well, but I just don't see it enough when it comes time for the committee. I think they overlook that part of the AP poll, and they come up with their own decisions, and I think they end up being a little bit lower than people may expect them to be at.
Fair enough.
But ahead of them, moving on, The Mountaineers of West Virginia at 19. And then bear down at 18, Arizona.
Yeah, and as you said that, I write them in at 16. I've got West Virginia a little lower, although they do have a pretty impressive resume. But again, they are a two-loss team. So Arizona, I think, has one of the more forgivable losses as far as one-loss team goes. As far as those teams go, so a little bit of mix-up with one-loss and two-loss teams here in the sort of high teens, lower 20s. But Arizona, they lose a heartbreaker. Ice the kicker. He misses the second attempt. And, of course, they have arguably one of the stronger quality wins of the season in upsetting the number 2 Oregon Ducks in Autzen Stadium.
Yeah, and I wouldn't count Arizona out. There's a lot of football still left to be played. They have at least 5 more looks before the end of the season by the committee. So plenty of time, plenty of upward mobility to work their way back into it, but they're going to have to earn it from here on out.
And it's funny that we're talking about Arizona, and I know they're coming up in your rankings. I'm a couple ahead of you, but I was glad to see that Aaron had Arizona State ranked ahead in terms of the, obviously a lower number, but ranked ahead of them because Arizona State, frankly, they've gotten the job done in the Pac-12, and when you only have the one loss to a quality UCLA team, I don't know. I see that as a brutal loss. They got shocked, but I think their overall body of work, and not just hinging on one signature upset like we were talking about with the Wildcats, I give Arizona State the nudge there.
And then to catch up my rankings a little bit, I got the Pirates of East Carolina University coming in at 17. I like that purple uniform. And then Boomer Sooner at 16, the Oklahoma Sooners, followed by Baylor and then Arizona State to round up the top 14.
Yeah, Baylor, of course, squeaking a close game by TCU, but then, of course, getting upset by this very West Virginia team we were just talking about in the Big 12. So Baylor, jury's still out on them, as far as I'm concerned, to drop that matchup against the Mountaineers very unexpectedly. And TCU, however, how do you feel about TCU?
I don't know what kind of team they are yet, and quite honestly, I don't think they know what kind of team they are yet. Yeah. They still have a lot of football to be played also, but I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt at 12. I'm giving Kansas State at 11 right in front of them. They lost a really close one against Auburn, and quite honestly, I felt with the home field advantage that they deserved to win that game. They did miss 2 field goals, so it kind of came down to the wire for me, and I think if they had the chance to play that game again, they could possibly beat Auburn.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just early season jitters, but the Utes, I have them coming in at 13.
And that's obviously where we disagree.
I'm going to put a star beside Utah, because watch out, they could be the team at the end of the season, not necessarily on the outside looking in, but one of those teams that no one sees coming until the second to last week, and then all of a sudden they're in the selection for the playoff.
Yeah, I do think, as we discussed earlier, I think USC handles business against the Utes, so that's the main sort of big separation that you see between Aaron's and my rankings. But I'm with you on K-State. Until they prove me otherwise, a forgivable loss to Auburn at home. They fought them tough. Auburn, I think we'll get to them a little later in these rankings. But yeah, no reason to discredit the resume of Kansas State at this point, and they're going to take on Texas next, and I think they are fully capable of beating the Longhorns.
All right, so now we're rolling into the top 10, folks. Bear with us. I have the Buckeyes coming in at 10.
Okay.
And based kind of solely on, if you've been watching the show, you know how I feel. And it's a pretty honest look. If you discount the Virginia Tech loss, and what I mean, if they play that game over again, or if you look that season on, it's a completely different team. They're getting hot late in the season.
They learned a lot from that loss.
They found their identity from that loss.
Right.
And I really think later on in the season, they pick up the steam. The voters are going to notice, and they're going to be in the conversation. They control their own destiny. I put them at 10. A little bit of that also is based on the fact that I think teams ahead of them lose out and fall out of the top 10.
Yeah.
So.
I agree with that. They do control their own destiny, but they're going to need, obviously, the help of other teams losing. We have this very strong SEC West division that, they're going to have to duke it out against one another. But I'm with you. I think Ohio State, they're on the up and up. If they continue to get the job done in Big Ten play, we've talked about it already. I think they won't have too much trouble beating Penn State impressively in a primetime matchup on the road. So again, as teams fall, Ohio State continues to handle business. There's no reason they won't rise.
And both of us coming in at 9. We're both giving them kind of the benefit of the doubt. It's weird. Still have a bye week before the official rankings. So we're going to give the Dogs of Georgia a bone, if you will.
Sure.
At number 9.
They obviously face Florida next in the neutral site matchup. Always happens in Jacksonville, Florida.
The world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
Yes, although I guess they don't really want it officially called that anymore, but it's a great nickname for a game. So I agree. Georgia, especially with possibly getting Todd Gurley back, they're
a lot hinges on that.
Yeah, definitely. But if they continue, I don't think they should have too much trouble with Florida, who just stumbled against Mizzou. We don't know what to expect from Will Muschamp at this point. But they're handling business. Their one loss is a controversial one to South Carolina, where basically, the ball placement and the spot, seriously, inches from converting a first down for a first down. So moving forward, number 8, I have.
Same time.
Yep. Okay.
I have the Ducks.
All right, fair enough. I have Notre Dame. I think that Notre Dame is better than the 8th team in the country. I think that the Florida State game was indicative of the fact that they can take on the best of the best. But again, the teams ahead of them in my rankings don't have a blemish, or it's a quality loss, but it is still a loss. So I had to take that into consideration. I know you probably got them coming up in the next 2.
Yep. I picked Oregon at 8, simply based on I still feel like any of these teams I put on the board control their own destiny. But at the point, I think Oregon loses some points based on the difference between the AP poll and the selection committee poll, just out of the fact that high-powered offenses that put in big numbers look good to some people, but some of the voters out there may think that, well, if they don't really play someone with a defense, what happens?
Right.
And, in the past, it's been that Stanford game with Oregon that they came up short a couple times.
Sure.
So.
That game has typically, in recent memory, been a big determinant of the Pac-12 North picture. But again, Oregon losing kind of, I wouldn't say a fluke, because Arizona outplayed them that game, and Oregon, made some silly mistakes. But I think they keep rolling. I have faith in Mariota. He's one of the, I believe he's the most efficient passer in the country, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, maybe over the season, but Mariota is a great quarterback. Yeah. He's on Heisman buzz all the time, and I expect him to carry forward. Notre Dame coming in at 7, and before we do the big reveal in our top 5, Michigan State with a star. And I starred some of the teams on my list because this is another team you have to look out for. No surprise here, but that showdown in East Lansing between Michigan State and Ohio State, whoever wins that, they're going to rock it up. At least the number 5 spot, I think, later on in the season. And whoever wins that game, if they win the Big Ten championship in Indianapolis, there's no doubt in my mind, if one of those 2 teams wins that game also, they're in the conversation.
Yeah,
they're going.
No question. A one-loss Big Ten East division champion going on to win the conference, I think that resume speaks for itself, even on a down year for the Big Ten. I think there's no question that the winner of that game, if they can run the table, they will be in the top 4 of the playoff that we're discussing. So as we whittle down here to our top 5.
It's called Chalk Talk for a reason, folks.
We're finally getting a chalkboard incorporated. But I don't think, I think the more controversial parts of our rankings are behind us. I think we're going to agree. The fact that we had these couple flip-flops, not a big deal. I think we've got the same exact 5 teams. In fact, I don't think there's any way that we couldn't have the same 5 teams.
If you've been watching college football at all this season, this should really come to no surprise to you.
Yep. So
coming in at number 5,
Auburn University. We mentioned
War Eagle.
It's a quality win against Kansas State. It's kind of weird to give both the winner and the loser sort of a boost in terms of having a quality win or loss. But yeah, Auburn, I don't think they're going to have any trouble moving forward until
the Iron Bowl. The Iron Bowl is coming down.
Yes.
A lot of people's seasons are coming down to one game, and that's it. Number 4, the Seminoles.
Yep, I agree.
Florida State. I don't see them as a top 3 team
Nor
after
do
that
I.
Notre Dame game.
Yep.
I think it's a very controversial call. We're not going to get too far into that,
Yep.
but I think there are a lot of intelligent folks out there that get paid a lot of money to rank these, and I can't make an argument for them to be number 1, defending national champion or not, but
They shouldn't get grandfathered in. Their schedule's nowhere near as strong as these other 4 teams that we're listing. Yeah, they did get the win. And I wanted to say, technically speaking, no, they got the win.
Yeah, they got the
but
win.
I don't think they're a top 3, top 2 team.
at the same time, though, I don't see them falling outside of the top 5.
Yeah, and they honestly have the easiest road to the title they're taking on Louisville next. There's no more Teddy Bridgewater. They're not going to have too much trouble. So Notre Dame was in my opinion, probably their stoutest test, and they were able to come away with a victory in Tallahassee. So, but we mentioned the Iron Bowl. So
Here we go. This one
we go.
deserves 2 more stars right here. Roll Tide.
but I love how we both abbreviated it without even realizing.
I mean,
yeah, the
it's-
Crimson Tide were extremely impressive in their absolute dismantling of Texas A&M. I frankly don't see them having another stumbling. But if you are going to stumble, might as well be to one of the top 2 teams in the country.
Yep.
And that's to Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think they earn it. They get the benefit of the doubt. I mean, enjoy it while it lasts,
Yep.
because it doesn't take a genius to figure out who we have at number 1 here, and it's coming down to the Egg Bowl yet again. Another. How great is it for the first year?
Yeah.
College football playoff system for some teams to be on the inside or outside based on the outcome of a rivalry game.
Yeah, it's fantastic. This is what makes college football great. Hearkening back to the 42-39, 1 versus 2, Ohio State, Michigan, same kind of dynamic. This Egg Bowl is going to be huge, just as the Iron Bowl is. So there's obviously going to be a lot of shakeup as the season draws, the regular season draws to a close. So obviously the Bulldogs of Mississippi State
More cowbell.
have earned their spot, and the quickest team, if I'm not mistaken, in college football history to go from unranked to number 1. It took them 5 weeks.
Wow.
Their body of work, very impressive. They've
Dak Prescott,
Yeah.
his resume for the Heisman. I mean,
He's got a great story. They've dispatched a bunch of ranked opponents.
at LSU in Death Valley.
Yep. Yeah,
It doesn't get any better than that.
And Auburn too, in Stark Vegas.
Well, that's the big reveal. No surprises here for most folks if you're paying attention to college football. Of course, we'll find out what the voters think next week.
So follow us on Twitter at ChalkTalkOSU. Of course, anything we talk about is fair game. We're anxious to hear your input, and of course, use the hashtag CTOSU. And without anything further to cover, for Kaylee Rentz, who will obviously be back next week, for Aaron Yarian, I'm Andrew Todd Smith, and that's all the time we have, folks. Take care.